Hey guys, hope you had a good day, got your work done. We're going to see what's going on with our friend Ralph. I'm hoping that we'll be able to finish our book before our last regular day of school on the 15th. Excuse me. So yesterday, remember, Aunt Jill had a real long conversation with Garth, and they kind of figured out what was going on, and he wanted some time to be alone. I think he felt like he was pushed around a little bit and always doing something, and so I get that. I think that was really cool. But remember, at the very, very end, Katso, let's see what happened with Katso. They made that sign for him, and then I think Katso might have tried to appear just a little bit there. So our next chapter, remember, this is our story, Runaway Ralph by Beverly Cleary. And here's a picture that's coming up here. So that cat has a grin on his face like he's going to get up to something. So, wonder about that. I hope that my cats aren't badly behaved this time like they were when I did virtual morning meetings. So, chapter 6 is called A Thief in the Craft Shop. At first, the sign over Ralph's cage was cause of argument. But Aunt Jill, how come Garth is the only one who gets to feed the mouse? The campers asked. I want to feed the mouse too. Why can't I feed the mouse? That's not fair. Nobody else has a mouse. Aunt Jill always said the same thing. Garth gets to feed the mouse because the mouse is his. He caught the mouse in a butterfly net. The policy inspired some of the campers to go mouse hunting, big game hunting, they called it, with butterfly nets. But when no mice were caught, enthusiasm waned and the campers lost interest. Excuse me. Katso followed someone into the craft shop whenever he could, and whenever he succeeded, Aunt Jill said, someone had better put that cat out. Usually Lana was the one who picked up Katso and held him with his face over her shoulder just like he was a baby. So that Lana, remember, his chum's person. Poor baby, she said, patting Katso on the back as if she were burping an infant. Ralph found the smug look on Katso's face most annoying. So remember the look on his face? I like that. That's a great word. He looks smug. Can you see him there? Kind of like, yeah, I'm going to get you, Ralph. Garth was happy, but Ralph was not. The boy showed no signs of running away, and now that he abided by the rules, the two of them were never alone. The bars of Ralph's cage enclosed a very small area, and no matter how fast he ran on his wheel, he remained in the same place. He began to sit motionless for long periods of time while he thought more and more about the freedom he had enjoyed back at the Mountain View Inn. He missed those long corridors. Corridors is a fancy word for hallway. And his exciting expeditions, and that's like when you go explore something in search of food. When he had once called crumb scrounging, now he thought of as a test of courage. He even came to admit that he missed his little brothers and his sisters and cousins. They were nuisances, but they were livelier than that grumpy hamster. Perhaps he wouldn't mind giving some of the little mice, just the boy mice, of course, short rides on his motorcycle after all. Most of all, Ralph missed his motorcycle. He clutched the wires of his cage and recalled the nights he had sped through the corridors, remember that's hallways, of the old hotel while guests snored behind doors. Tried to pretend they were grips on his handlebar. It was no use. The wires remained what they were, the bars of a small prison, higher but not as long as an economy-sized Kleenex box. Ralph grew listless. So great was his homesickness that choice tidbits from the dining hall tempted him less and less. He sometimes skipped meals, preferring instead to curl up in a corner under some shredded paper where he dozed, dreaming of dark nights, smooth floors, and speed. Cheer up, said Chum. You'll get used to the cage. Ralph didn't answer. He wanted to be alone with his thoughts. Garth, on the other hand, no longer wanted to be alone. He came into the craft shop to tend to Ralph while the others were present. And soon he became interested in the tools of the shop and finally went to work with some other boys building wooden boats to float in the irrigation ditch. One long morning, Ralph passed the time by watching a girl named Karen. Karen was one of the older campers, a girl 12 or 13 years old, with long blonde hair, which that morning was wet. All the other girls washed their hair several times a week. Karen was making an old plastic bleach bottle into a piggy bank. She turned it on its side so the handle was on top, glued corks into place for legs, cut a slit under the handle, and painted eyes above the spout, which was now the piggy bank's snout. Snout like snout. Ralph noticed that Karen paused from time to time to scratch her left arm. Finally, Karen set her paintbrush across the top of the paint jar and removed her wristwatch, which she laid on the shelf beside Ralph's cage. He could hear it tick. She scratched the spot where it had been and returned to her painting, but then she stopped to scratch again. "Karen, let me see your arm," said Aunt Jill, who was showing a boy how to lace together a wallet. "It looks like you have poison oak. You'd better go see the nurse about it, and be careful not to scratch it." "But Aunt Jill, it feels so good to scratch," said Karen, tossing back her hair. "I know, but scratching it only makes it worse and makes it spread. Now run along and see the nurse. I'll wash out your paintbrush for you. It's almost time for the dinner bell." When the dinner bell rang for noon, the craft shop was empty. Ralph felt his fur rise above his spine. Sure enough, just as he expected, there was the curious paw of Catso exploring the hole in the screen door. Then his pink nose appeared. Catso must have pushed hard because the rusty screen gave way and the rest of his head appeared. Catso did not stop there. He pushed and wiggled until he got one shoulder and then the other through the hole. Then came Catso's front feet, followed by the rest of the beast. Catso was in the craft shop. Where was Sam? Ralph scuttled to the far corner of his cage when he turned his back to the world and tried to make himself invisible. He heard Catso land lightly on the work table beneath his cage and knew that there was no time for someone to snatch the cat and shove him out the door. Ralph waited, but when nothing happened, he summoned the courage to peek over his shoulder. Catso was calmly washing himself and appeared not to notice. Ralph was not fooled for an instant. He knew Catso was aware of every single move he made. "Drat that cat," he thought bitterly, as his heart beat faster than the tick of the watch on the shelf beside his cage. "Oh, maybe she'll come get that watch." Catso licked his paw right over and over with great care and began to wash his right ear. "That's right," thought Ralph. "Take your time." He was worn out from bracing himself for the pounce that didn't come. A real war of nerves, he thought. Exactly what this cat wants. He's got me where he wants me. He knows it. Catso groomed his left paw, currying his fur neatly in the direction of his toes. He used his teeth to pull bits of dried mud from between his paw pads and began to scrub his left ear. "Come on," thought Ralph, "get it over with. You don't have to be so neat." He would just as soon be knocked off his shelf by a cat with dirty ears as a cat with clean ears. Catso finished washing, looked at Ralph, and glanced away. Ralph, who was familiar with this maneuver, thought, "Here it comes." But the time Ralph was mistaken. Catso's attention had been caught by the leather strap of the wristwatch hanging over the edge of the shelf. He tapped it with the curve of his paw and watched it swing back and forth. Ralph's blood chilled as claws appeared from the exploring paw that battled the strap once more. Then the claws hooked the watch strap and dragged the watch down to the work table. "Why, that cat actually thinks the watchband is a tail," thought Ralph in astonishment. Catso sat very still listening to the watch tick. He batted it experimentally with his paw, but the watch lay as still as any terrified mouse. While Ralph watched in fascination, Catso picked up the watch in his tail and, with the strap hanging down like a tail, leaped from the table to the floor, where he dropped the watch, batted it about, picked it up, and slipped through the hole in the screen door. Ralph ventured out of his corner with shaking paws clung to the wire of his cage to see what would happen next. Catso played with the watch a while in the bamboo leaves, but when the cook came with a pan of scraps in hand, opened by the kitchen door, the greedy animal dropped the watch and ran off to be fed. The watch slid on a smooth bamboo husk until it came to rest, hidden from sight under some leaves. "Oh, remember what's there?" His motorcycle, too. "Whew, talk about close calls," said Chum. "Oh, that cat, he's not very smart," said Ralph in a weak voice. Ralph was dazed by the whole experience, but he noticed Garth leaving the dining room when the campers began to sing one of their favorite songs. "Come to the craft shop," Ralph pleaded silently, and true to his promise to Aunt Jill, the boy did not go into the craft shop, but sat alone with his thoughts, twirling idly in a tire suspended from one of the trees and singing to private tunes. All righty. we'll just see what happens tomorrow. So, thankfully, that cat took the watch instead of Ralph. So, all right. Have a great evening. If you're watching this in the evening, goodness, Miss McNeil's hair needs done. If you haven't gotten all our NTI stuff, get that done. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow for our virtual morning meeting. Love you guys.